Hey everyone, it's Randy from Benham Outdoors. Gonna do a little video, just a little honest review comparing some charts. We've got the Navionics Plus and the Humminbird Lakemaster. I want to kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of the differences between the two, some of the pros and cons of each, and just that way you can make a little bit more of an educated decision about what kind of cartography that you want to use whenever you're choosing to get a new map for your GPS. These are all going to be associated with Humminbird units, not Lowrance, because obviously Lakemaster is a Humminbird product and it won't work on a Lowrance unit. But anyway, I think there are some distinct differences. There are good things about both of them and some of the bad things about both of them. So we'll get into that right now and kind of show you a little bit of the difference between the two. So let's get into it. So one of the obvious things that we talk about with these two different types of charts for your Humminbird GPS units is color scheme. The Humminbirds have a tendency, they come with these blue backgrounds. There are 4 different colors that usually will show up on here, up to 4. You can choose less and you can choose more. But some of the things that are really nice about this is the level of detail that they have on some of these contour maps. I was actually up a couple of weeks ago, and in the back of the creeks, you tend to have a little bit more detail with the Humminbird Lakemaster chart way back in the creeks as compared to the Navionics. So I'm going to zoom up here in the back of one of the Blakeleys here and kind of show you a little bit of what's going on back here, of how much detail that you actually really do see back here. And so then as a comparison, I'm going to pull up the Navionics version of this same exact creek and let you see the differences. So I'm actually using the chart viewer that's online for the Navionics to kind of demonstrate this. But as you can see here, we are on the same areas that we are comparing here. And when you go and zoom in as much as you possibly can and go back to the very back of the creeks here, you can see that there's not near as much detail on Little Blakely Creek on Lake Ouachita as compared to, say, the Lakemaster maps. So I'm going to zoom in here and let you kind of see the differences between the two as we kind of come around here and we look. As we zoom in, there is a lot of detail. There's a little hump that shows up right there, right next to a roadbed. And whenever you switch over and go back to the Humminbird, the Navionics, there's not nearly as much detail. Now there's the Navionics setting that's over here in the far left-hand corner, and you can also use Sonar Chart, which is kind of a community things. There's really not that much difference between the two. So this is a major advantage for somebody who fishes big lakes that is otherwise gonna kind of stay shallow if you're looking to go back to the back of the creeks. There are some subtle differences between the two that I have noticed on the deeper parts of the lake that have a lot of good contours, but by and large this is the major difference. That's a big advantage for the Lakemaster maps. Now the one disadvantage that I do see with the Lakemaster maps is that if you're a person that fishes a lot of different bodies of water, particularly if you are somebody that goes to smaller places, like I'm in Arkansas, so what we wind up seeing here a lot of times is, here's another example right here of Lake Hamilton in Arkansas, which is part of the Ouachita River system. And whenever you zoom in here, you have absolutely no details whatsoever of this lake. When we shift back over to the Navionics unit and we look at the maps on Lake Hamilton here, you can see that we do have plenty of contours to choose from. So that's the one disadvantage of these of the Lakemaster that I do see. So that can be problematic if you're going to be a type of person that's going to be doing, you know, bouncing around to a lot of different lakes and not just focusing on major lakes with high def maps. So that's definitely an advantage towards the Navionics. Another example here that we're kind of sort of demonstrate to you is, as you can see here, this is a dam at Lake Dardanelle on the Arkansas River. And whenever you look up on Lake Dardanelle, this is a high def map that you can see a lot of contours. But just the last fall, I fished in a tournament where I locked down to the next pool below that, and whenever I did, there's nothing. Now, when we compare that to the Navionics version, get that out of the way, you can see here that we still have plenty of contour lines that we can kind of run, and kind of a lot more detail showing that body of water. One of the other features that I really do kind of like about the Lakemaster units is the fact that sometimes you will get some free data with them, like these little fish marks, which really kind of indicate that there's a brush pile that has been planted and recorded either through Game and Fish or through some other government agency, or maybe somebody's found them and just uploaded them and given them to everybody. But these things are so easily seen on the Lakemaster maps that it makes it real easy whenever you're out in the bright sun to navigate to them and be able to go check them out to see if they still exist and to see if there's fish on them. On the Navionics charts, it's a little more subtle. They're there a lot of times, but they can be kind of hard to see. So here's an example of some fish attractors that you may or may not be able to even see on here. So if you can imagine trying to find these things whenever your unit's on in the bright sun, it's a lot more difficult to find. They're very, very subtle, but you can find them and they're there. Now, the odds of them being there is a little bit higher whenever you see multiple ones stacked up. And this is kind of an obvious point where somebody would just idle over this to make sure that they're still there before they decided to fish them. But it just kind of highlights what the differences are between the two types of maps. So whenever you go from that to looking right here and you zoom up, and you're able to see those fish marks a little bit easier, it makes it a lot easier whenever you're out in the bright sun to be able to tell what's going on. So again, this is a huge advantage for the Lakemaster over the Navionics. Well, the one thing I will say though about this is that I see a lot fewer of these brush pile markings on the Lakemaster map than I do the Navionics. And for the state of Arkansas, I have driven over a lot of these things, and they are there on the Navionics. So they're, you know, that's one advantage that Navionics may have over them, is that there are a few more brush piles that are actually out there marked. A couple of other things about the units themselves. The Lakemaster is proprietary through Humminbird. They don't have an online chart so that you can do map study in-house. The one exception to that is there's an app that people can use. It's called the Fish Smart app. So you may see that. The problem that I have with that is every single map that you download is $25 to $30. So if you wanted to get some high definition maps to look at either on your phone or on your iPad, that may be a little bit more difficult. It's very easy to do map study on the Navionics website. They have a chart viewer there that's free for people to use, so you can get on there and do some map study. So a lot of times that's a little bit more user-friendly status for that, kind of leads you towards Navionics. The other thing is that the geographical area, whenever you look at both of these, Lakemaster maps is really, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, fits 5 states. So it's Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Whereas the difference between that and Navionics regions is on the south, we go from Florida over into New Mexico, up to Nebraska and Missouri, Tennessee, and all points really kind of in between on those. So Navionics has more maps of more lakes. The detail's not quite as intense and depth, particularly on shallow stuff, as the Lakemaster is, but at the same time, it just kind of depends on what kind of fishing you do. So if you're the kind of person that goes to big lakes only, like in Arkansas, for example, if you only go to Ouachita, Greer's Ferry, Bull Shoals, big lakes like that, Lakemaster might be the one for you. If you fish smaller bodies of water, like here in central Arkansas, if you went to Lake Maumelle or Brewer Lake, or you fish some of the Little Rock or the Arkansas River pools that are not Lake Dardanelle or not the Little Rock pool, you may decide that you don't really want to use the Lakemaster. You may be better off with Navionics, since there's a little bit more detail on those. Lastly, you know, the price point of each, I paid $150 for this map, which is a Navionics, and it has a little bit more, you know, more lakes, maybe not quite as much shallow detail compared to the Lakemaster. The Lakemaster was $130. So the other thing is, if you're a regional guy and you're going to fish over in, if you like, for me, I live in Arkansas. If you're going to go to Alabama, you're going to have to buy a second Lakemaster map if you were going to go to Pickwick or Gunnersville. Whereas with the Navionics, you can pretty much just use the Navionics for pretty much all of the southeastern United States over to even Texas, which is really the south central of the United States. So that's a fair and honest review. I like both. There's advantages to both and there's disadvantages to both. Hopefully this will kind of help somebody if you're in the market to want to get you a map product and see how it does. So anyway, hope you liked the video. We'll try to find some more interesting topics to do this for things in the future, so stay tuned. And if you like the video, like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon out on the water. Bye.